Welcome to the Arizona Department of Education's video on implementation suggestion for grades 3 through 5. In 2018, the Arizona State Board of Education adopted new social studies standards and gave time recommendations for elementary classrooms. With the changes to the storylines for grades 3 and 4 specifically, the social studies team has developed some suggestions that will help avoid the gap in content between the grades as students and schools transition to the new standards. In today's video, we will review the content anchor standards, review the course considerations and storylines for each of the intermediate grades, and last examine a way to mine the gap in content between each of the grade levels to maximize student learning. To begin with, the intermediate grade band 3 through 5 has 21 social studies anchor standards to teach in the following content areas: civics, history, economics, geography, and most importantly, disciplinary skills and processes. This does not mean that each grade teaches all 21 anchor standards, but within the grade band, they will be all covered. Each of these anchor standards have grade level specific standards that must be taught for each grade. While this may seem like a lot, please remember that teaching social studies is teaching reading, and studies done by Wexler, Leslie and Caldwell, and also Willingham demonstrate that barring decoding issues, weak readers with strong background knowledge do better on standardized tests than strong readers with weak background knowledge. Check out the video on tips to integrate social studies and ELA to build that background knowledge on the Social Studies Standards website. Let's now look at the course considerations. These are tied directly to the storylines for each grade. For third grade, the focus shifts to Arizona studies to keep the growing complexity of social studies taught at the elementary level. Third graders should learn of the contributions of various cultural and ethnic groups that live and have lived in Arizona, the economic, political, and geographic elements of the state of Arizona. They also need to learn the structure of our state and local governments, the roles and responsibilities they have as citizens, and the last two course considerations focus more on the disciplinary skills and processes, the examination of primary and secondary sources, and looking at change and continuity along with multiple perspectives and cause and effect will develop students' reading and writing skills. For fourth grade, most of the new course considerations and storylines were in the old standards. By removing Arizona studies to third grade, time is now freed up to devote to the remaining content. First, fourth graders should learn the theories about the peopling of the Americas. Then, the development of Mesoamerica and South American civilizations. The Americas prior to European exploration is next. To ease the transition, these three course considerations all have ties to Arizona studies. In this transition year, fourth grade teachers can use some of their old curriculum to teach these topics. Then, move on to the causes and consequences of European exploration and colonization. Look at the environmental, political, and cultural consequences of the interactions between Europeans, Americans, and African peoples. Then, turn your focus to the new colonies on the East Coast. Examine the regional settlement patterns and developments and the roles and responsibilities of the new English colonies. Also, teach the contributions of various cultural and ethnic groups to the development of the Americas. The last three course considerations focus more on the disciplinary skills and processes, like the examination of primary and secondary sources, using historical fiction and other texts to look at change and continuity along with multiple perspectives and cause and effect. These will develop students' reading and writing skills. Now for fifth grade. Fifth grade narrows the Americas focus to just the United States. Since fourth grade teaches about the early American colonial period, teachers will begin with the historic and economic events from the beginnings of the American Revolution to industrialism. This includes the study of the creation of the Constitution, the development and structure of the national government, the influence of immigration from 1763 to the early 1900s, the contributions of various cultural and ethnic groups that impacted the changing structure of the United States. The roles and responsibilities of citizens of the United States is also included. And like fourth grade, the last three course considerations focus more on the disciplinary skills and processes, like the examination of primary and secondary sources, using historical fiction and other texts to look at the change and continuity along with multiple perspectives, and cause and effect. These will develop your students' reading and writing skills. So the key takeaway is to mind the gap between the content of the old standards and the content the new standards focus on. The Social Studies team recommends for the 2019-2020 transition year that intermediate grades should focus on the following. First, that third grade begins teaching the new standards as much as possible, to get Arizona Studies as complete and as thorough as possible. Then, in the fourth grade, as a transition, teach some Arizona Studies, especially as it pertains to the peopling of the Americas and the Mesoamerican cultures. For example, you can have students learn about the trade of goods and ideas that went from the Arizona Puebloan peoples to the peoples of Mesoamerica. After learning about those Mesoamerican and South American civilizations and cultures and their contact with Spanish and Portuguese Europeans, study the native peoples of the east coast of the United States and their contact with English Europeans. This would make a great inquiry and comparison. Then move into the American colonies and study those thoroughly. The key to fourth grade next year is to retain some Arizona history, teach some of the other American civilizations, and finish with the study of the American colonies. Now, why is it crucial to mind the gap in fourth grade? Fifth grade teachers will skip the American colonies and begin teaching United States studies at the American Revolution. That's not to say you can't quickly review the colonies in fifth grade, but to avoid the problem of teaching history as a mile wide and an inch deep, we want to cut some of that content down for fifth grade teachers. Overall, this will be a tricky year for elementary students and teachers, as we make sure that students get the background knowledge they need without major gaps, and that teachers are able to focus on inquiry and those disciplinary skills and processes. As a reminder, use your social studies content in all three grades to reinforce and teach those ELA skills, and remember that inquiry is an excellent method to do this. Thank you for watching our video on implementation suggestions for grades 3 through 5. For questions or concerns, please contact either Tammy Waller at tammy.waller@azed.gov or Linda Burrows at linda.burrows@azed.gov, or visit the Arizona Department of Education Social Studies Standards website. Thank you.